Welcome back to Story Corner, and apologies, it's been so long since my last reading. I better kick things back off with a particularly good story. So, I probably say this far too often, but this is one of my favourites. It's got music, it's got dancing, it's got fairies, and most of all I just really enjoy saying the place name, Tomnahurich. A long time ago, there were two travelling fiddle players roaming the Highlands to make some money. As many artists or musicians know, people often enjoyed their work, but they don't want to pay for it. There are two fiddlers that passed through dozens of towns and villages by the time they arrived in Inverness. Luck hadn't been on their side, and they were pretty much out of cash. If they couldn't find a well-paying gig this evening, then they were sleeping on the streets. So they played out in the open, busking to drum up a bit of attention, reels, jigs and laments, the full works to show what they could do. The people in Inverness, they weren't very impressed though. Apart from one old man. He stood and he watched them with a big grin on his face and tapping his foot away to the beat. Eventually, he walked up to the dejected buskers and made him a proposition. He was looking for remarkable musicians to play for a remarkable group of people. If they were interested, he'd pay them double what he would normally charge. He would even feed them as well. All they had to do was meet him at Tomnahurich Hill at sunset. Now this sounds like an excellent proposition for the young men, but was it too good to be true? The pair had barely eaten for days, so really it didn't take long for them to accept the offer. Just as the sun was going down, they walked to Tomnahurich, where the old man was waiting. He showed him to a peculiar looking opening in the hillside, with light and warmth and the sound of laughter blaring out. And into the depths of Tomnahurich the fiddlers went. An enormous hall stretched before him, full of people dressed in the finest of clothes, around a table groaning under the weight of so much food. A loud cheer went up from the revellers at the sight of the two men and their fiddles. A loud rumble sounded from the musicians' stomachs, followed by an embarrassing cough. The guide told them not to rush, just enjoy their fill of food and drink before they start to play. Once they were satisfied, the fiddlers tuned their instruments and announced the first song. The party was wild. The dancing went on for what felt like hours. The fiddlers had as much fun as the audience, but I don't think they'd ever played as well before. They were certainly earning their payment. But all good things must come to an end. And when the dances were finished, the old man paid the two fiddlers even more than he'd promised. And he ushered them out of Tomnahurich into the early dawn. One of the pair, he turned to ask, if you ever need us again, but the doorway disappeared. Then slowly walked into Inverness, tired from the night's work, but everything seemed different. Houses had sprung up overnight, whereas sure there were just fields before, and they didn't recognise any of the stores or the pubs. All the people were dressed funny, but they were the ones whispering and pointing and laughing at them. And a church bell rang out. Finally, something they recognised. They might get a wee bit of sense from. It was a Sunday, so they went straight to the church and sat at the back. The minister started a sermon, but as soon as he mentioned the name of God, poof, the fiddlers of Tomnahurich crumbled into dust. You see, they had been playing under the hill for a single night. They'd been there for 100 years. That wasn't just any old man. That was Thomas the Rhymer who'd lured them in to play at the fairies' party. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Story Corner with an important lesson to be learned. Now, not everybody is musically gifted enough to be sought after by the fairies, but just remember, if somebody offers you a deal that's too good to be true, it usually is. Sláinte.